Hey everybody, it's Randy with Carchaeology, and I've got an absolutely amazing experience to share with all of you guys here, and it has something to do with the Brubaker Box that you see on the wall back behind me. This is the Hot VW's magazine article. It was also shot for some other magazines as well. That car got a ton of press, and I'm totally thrilled with the whole experience, from taking this thing as just a rotten body that was found out in the desert and turning it into a show car that was on magazines and currently sits in the Petersen Museum. Now, the coolest part about this particular story and this particular car is that it's super rare that once a car leaves my possession that I'm really attached to it in any way, shape, or form. You can see on the wall back here some other magazine features and stuff. I mean, these are cars that I've done. I've put my heart, my soul, my life, and time into them, and once they're gone, they're kind of gone. But the Brubaker has been the gift that keeps on giving. Now, this was a car that my friend Mike found just as a rotten body sitting out in the desert. It was a car that I really deeply wanted to build because it was a car I was fascinated with as a child. So getting the opportunity to build that car was, a fulfillment of something that I really always wanted. Unfortunately, the way circumstances were at the time, I really needed to sell the car and sell it quickly when it was done. And so I put it up on eBay, let it fly, and just hope for the best. Well, what happened after that was far better than the best I ever could have imagined. While it was on the auction, I was contacted by somebody from the Petersen Museum. They were interested in having the car on display. Of course, the car was selling at an auction. I had no idea who the buyer was going to be, but I promised them that I would run it by the buyer and see if they would be interested in having it at the museum. As luck would have it, it sold to a collector over in Germany, Andreas Wykes, car guy Andy, he calls himself, I believe. He is a collector of all sorts of really crazy machines, and he ended up being the winning bidder. And he was also someone that wanted to have some fun with the car while it was here in California. So we brought it up to Monterey, brought it up to several different events at Monterey Car Week, and then he was open to having it displayed at the Petersen Museum. So about a year ago, we brought the car over there, dropped it off at the museum, and it's been on display there ever since. Now, talk about a sense of pride for me personally to walk into that museum, something that I feel is one of the best automotive museums in the world, and see the Brubaker Box that I did right here in the lab on display, along with these other absolutely amazing automobiles, have my name on the sign down below. It just blew my frickin' mind. But there it's been sitting for the past year or so. Now, one of the things that I always wanted to do when I got the car and got working on the project was to gather the people that were involved with the build originally. Now, I had been in touch with Curtis Brubaker through the process. I had met him once before many years ago, but I never got a chance to get him together with the car. There were other guys that were involved with the build and the design of the car, Wykes, Todd Gerstenberger. These were guys that I reached out to and contacted back when I was building the car, but never got a chance to meet them face to face. Well, that chance happened. A grand stroke of luck, a bunch of effort by Andreas in contacting everybody, Curtis being on board with it, getting the other guys involved with it. We all landed at the Petersen Museum this past Friday for an incredible reunion of these three guys that were the keystone of what made this car what it was. It was a car that, quite frankly, from the start, kind of failed. They made two cars. Well, three if you count the one that they made for the Arc 2 movie that was called the Roamer. So three cars left their hands before everything collapsed all around them. Now, one of the investors in the company stepped in and took over the molds and started producing some more bodies. So the Brubaker Box lived on a little bit beyond these guys. A total of 28 cars total, we're guessing, were built. That's including the three that were actually built by Curtis and his crew. And then that was it. So the interesting thing about it, though, is despite its small production numbers and the fact that it failed miserably at the very start, it's a car that really has become a cult classic. And anybody that sees the car and is familiar with it is blown away with the opportunity to check it out. It's a car that has a universal appeal to it. There is something powerful about this design that reaches people from all walks of life. When I've shown it and had it out at some of the events there, it blew me away, the people that were attracted to this car. It could be housewives, it could be big burly bikers, kids on scooters, whatever. Everybody reacted in a very interesting way to the Brubaker Box. So it was fan-frickin-tastic to have it there at the Petersen Museum where it can be shared with more people. Because that's really what I love to do. I love to take these cars and the story behind them and get them out there where people can see it. A magazine article is one thing, but a car sitting in a museum is another. And then to actually get together with the people that were instrumental in the build of it at the very start, absolutely mind-blowing. So when we got to the museum, I showed up a little bit early. I had a photographer friend of mine come along as well so he could capture some great images of it. The first guy to roll up was Todd Gerstenberger, and he was one of the main guys involved with that. He and his wife showed up, absolutely beautiful people. We chatted, we had a great time. Then after that, we had Andreas was there, of course, the owner of the car from Germany. He flew in to be there for that, along with his girlfriend. And then in pulled Tomo Bullum and Dale. These are the guys from driven.co that are the ones that are carrying the Brubaker torch forward into the future. For many years, they've been working and slaving and trying to make something go of the Brubaker Box. They've now completed all the molds of those cars, and they're going to be producing bodies. It's a slow process for them. They are not into fiberglass production there, but they're doing the best they can along with the crew that they've got there, and they're making incredible strides with that. And in fact, at the end of the day, they had a huge surprise for all of us. In any case, we all went up to where the car was once Curtis and Harry showed up. They were running late with LA traffic, and we all went up to the third floor of the Petersen Museum and gathered there in front of the car. Seeing these guys embrace each other, they're folks that have stayed in touch with each other, but they've shared so much of their lives and their time and their creative efforts in their early days. This was a tight crew, and I heard it from each and every one of them when they were in the process of building these cars back in the day. They really knew what the other one was thinking. It was a tight crew. They made some amazing machines. In any case, it was awesome. We all got together, photographs, lots of pictures from both the photographer there at the Petersen as well as the one that we brought, and everybody held their cell phones out. These guys all had big hugs for everybody, and there we were, posed in front of the Brubaker Box. And then once we had kind of had our meet and greet, Curtis and Harry and I walked around through the museum, saw some of the other cars on display, which was an absolute personal treat for me. These are two automotive design guys, and to walk through the Petersen Museum, which is the gallery for all the best of automotive design, that was some moments that I will never forget. But as we walked out, we were surprised with Tomo and his crew. They had brought Brubaker Box #1 out to share with everybody. Now, they picked up this car some years ago. It was in horrible shape. I believe it was in Florida, something in a swamp. But it was identified through by Curtis that this was the very first Brubaker Box and the one that was used in a lot of the early promotions. So when it came down to the restoration of that, Tomo and his crew are really focused on doing this thing back to the way that it was day one. Now, the car's not totally complete, but they brought it out looking fantastic, and it was a real treat for everybody there to see where it all started. This was the prototype Brubaker Box #1, and they were wise enough to bring a paint pen so that Curtis, Todd, and Harry could all sign the dashboard, and we could all pose for photos with Brubaker Box #1. So there you go. Brubaker Box is alive. It is something that is happening. It is something that I hope to see in the future. More Brubakers come out there. As for the fate of my green Brubaker, it is going to go from the Petersen Museum up to another museum up in Sacramento, California. It'll be on display there. And again, the legacy and the story continues. But the chance to get all together with the people that were most influential when it came down to the creation of this car that I saw when I was a kid and it blew my friggin' mind, well, okay, dream come true. Thanks to everybody that made this happen. Thank you to everyone at the Petersen Museum that allowed us all to come in, make a big scene there, and stop and block the traffic flow for a bit with both the car up on display as well as Tomo's car out in the alley or in the parking garage. In any case, absolutely fabulous. I hope you enjoyed the photos that I've flashed up here along this video, and I appreciate you watching Carchaeology. If you haven't subscribed, please do so, like, comment, etc., etc. I'd love to see this channel grow a little bit bigger. I'm doing some really neat stuff, and it's been really fun to share it with all of you. So thanks for watching, everybody. Keep on digging them up and driving them. History on wheels, the Brubaker Box. Bye-bye.